look at the way I'm all dressed up. See, look at here. This is to prove to you at one time I was a Presbyterian preacher. From the time I was 19 till the time I was 29 and left the clergy, I was preaching in the Presbyterian church. And because I was a Presbyterian preacher before I resigned, I still go to the Presbyterian church now. I go over here to Independent Presbyterian Church, which is about 50 yards from my house, so it makes it very, very convenient. Well, Sunday, I went in there, and I sat down. Well, let's put it this way. I tried to sit down in the normal place where I sit, but it was marked off. There were 3 rows there I couldn't sit on, so I went to the other side and tried to sit there, and they pushed me off to the very end. And what happened was, all these acolytes came in. They're teenagers dressed in all white robes like the angels, and they sat there, and so the preacher could, quote, quote, ordain them, I guess. Well, I sat there looking at them. I thought to myself, I used to be a teenage boy too. And if those teenage boys did on Friday what I used to do on Friday, on Saturday what I used to do on Saturday, and what I used to do Sunday morning, they ain't no angels. But anyway, they sat right there and it was fun. I enjoyed looking at them. Oddly enough, the boys didn't smile, but the girls flashed big, big smiles. Now, I feel very close to the minister, Conrad Sharps, because he and I joke about what it's like to be a preacher in a Presbyterian church. Well, yesterday was a very important sermon on stewardship, where they keep asking the congregation to give money to support the church. Well, right in the middle of his sermon, he took a pause and talked about how fast the Presbyterian denomination was dying. Well, I knew this already because I take the Christian Century. Well, that really shook me up at how fast the Presbyterian church is dying. Came back home, ate lunch, and sat down in front of the TV set to watch what was going on today. And there they had pictures of what was going on Occupy Wall Street. And all of a sudden, I saw all these young people, the same age as the boys were who I saw in church this morning, were over here demonstrating. And they say, we are the number 99. We're against the 1% on the top. First thought came into my mind was what Jesus said. It's easier for a camel to get through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to go to heaven. And I guess those young folks out there on Wall Street were proving it. Later on, I began to think of the contrast. In church where I was, we dressed teenagers up to look like saints, who obviously they're not. But when teenagers are themselves, they like to stand up for themselves, particularly on Wall Street. So the question I began to ask myself is, basically what the people on Wall Street are doing is they are fighting for social justice. When I was a preacher, I was a social gospeler, which meant we didn't spend too much time talking about the creeds. We spent all our time talking about the social gospel or social justice. So I began to wonder, here are these Jews that the church are dressing up as angels when they're not. And yet here are these rowdy people dressed in funny clothes that I used to wear when I was a teenager, demonstrating on Occupy Wall Street, and what they're doing is asking for social justice. Well, if Jesus was going to join either one of those crowds, which one do you think he would join? Not you. Amen.